Thank you very much for joining, and thank you for the Customer Success Network and Congress Geeks, and this whole conference for setting this up. We'll talk about references. We'll talk about how to manage a reference program. What is a reference program? My name is Gal, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of CrowdLocate. So first of all, we'll kind of run a framework of why, what, and how. And I know that references, so some of the audience here come from customer success. Some customer success teams deal with references all the time, and they get reference requests all the time, and it's frustrating. Like, hey, we can't ask this customer again. So there's a whole kind of, I think, issue around references and what is the right way to manage it. And I think that's why we're having this session today. So we're going to talk a little bit about why is it important? I mean, why do you get so many reference requests? Why is it so much needed? Why do many companies get it wrong, or how do many companies get it wrong? We'll also talk about the what is the value of having a program versus what most companies do right now, which is Wild West kind of programs. Everybody nominates whoever they want and uses whoever they want as much as they want. And then we'll give some actionable tips or ideas around how do you grow your reference pool, how do you source the best match references, how do you protect your customers and acknowledge their work and worth, and also how do you align, I guess, between CS, sales, and marketing. And we'll leave time for Q&A, so feel free to push in those questions. Let's get started. So although I think that everybody understands the value of references, let's put a few numbers into that. Look at what happened between 2015 and 2019. We're now 2021, so I think it's even more so. But a lot of people say, hey, let's let product-led growth. Our features will win. Let's feature dump them and win that deal. Reality is a bit different. I think at the end of the day, features many times are similar. And you can see that from 5 years ago or even 7 years ago, where the product promise, the offering, was what made people take a decision much more than word of mouth, voice of customer. Basically today, it's flipped. Voice of customer, word of mouth, what your existing customers tell about your product is more than basically double the impact or the influence of the actual product features, okay? And I think this is very important to understand, because most companies kind of think, hey, we'll win with product and references are nice to have. It sometimes is the other way around. So that's why it's so important for B2B sales. They would utilize references anywhere between 40 to 80% of their deals. If it's enterprise sales, it's definitely over 60% of the deals they use references of different types. And we'll talk about the different references types, such as reference calls, but even customer stories, testimonials, reviews. They're all kind of types of references. But there's another hidden number that I think that most people kind of neglect. Think about your company's revenue, right? Your revenue comes from 3 core pillars: new business, new sales, upsells, expansions, whatnot, and of course, retention. And again, this is kind of arbitrary averages, but let's say that on average, 25% of the business in an annual year, what we call the ARR, annual recurring revenue, comes from new business, new deals, and then another 15% perhaps comes from upsell, expansion, and maybe the rest of the 60% comes from recurring revenue. And each company has different numbers, right? Maybe for some recurring revenue is 50, and for others it's 70, but these are kind of the rough numbers. Now let's think about how references and how can impact all of that. So new business, new deals, we just said that anywhere between 40 to 80% of that pipeline, and if it's enterprise deals, and even 60+% of that pipeline has to have a reference before they make the decision. So references are influencing 25% of the business, more or less, pretty dramatically. Then let's talk about upsell. Why do we need references for upsell? So the answer is that if you want a company that's already using your product to expand to another, let's say marketing is using your product, now we want finance to use your product, right? Expansion. Or they're using feature A and now we want them to use feature B, upsell. References of customers who've done that. So of another company like them, of another bank like them, that the finance division is also using your product, or of another bank like them that, has already used the upsell to feature B and now sees more value from that. You need that voice of customer. You need those references to upsell. Upsell is a new sell. You need referenceability. You need content to make that sell viable. So now we're influencing, now we're influencing that as well with references. And lastly, people kind of neglected, but why would references influence in any way loyalty? And I think there's kind of an, compound impact twofold. First of all, if I gave a reference, if I gave a customer story, if I gave a quote, then I'm less likely to churn because I've already voted, for this brand. Conscious-wise, I'm not going to say 2 months after that it's not a great brand or not a great product. So I'm going to more likely renew psychology-wise. That's one thing. The other thing is that I see a lot of customers like me talking about this product, even though when I'm using it, again, renewal is a new sell in many ways. So even though that I'm already using the product, I like it, I'm happy, maybe I'm not amazingly happy, but I see a lot of companies like me or a lot of great companies still using it, still renewing it. Again, there's a compound impact there of renewal. So there's a lot of, these are the two reasons of why, right? And let's move on to, but where do companies get it wrong? And I'm going to use a slide from Gong here. And it's really interesting because what Gong found is that many times, a reference actually harms your deal, which is kind of counterintuitive. How could that happen? And the reason is that basically, when you look at that, most companies, most sales teams use references wrongfully. Why is that? Because not always the buyer and the reference have anything in common. So if you think about it, if I am, a automotive manufacturer from Germany, and when I come to the call or when I go in my buying process, you kind of talk to me about the fact that you have Bank of America as your customer, right? That's great, but it's not relevant for me. I'm not a bank, I'm automotive, I'm not in America, I'm in Germany. Maybe I'm a smaller automotive manufacturer versus, maybe you're focused only on those high, big brand names like Bank of America, whatever. So, at the end of the day, references need to be super, super, super specific. And what most companies do is the salespeople use time and again, that's why we call it the Wild West. The salespeople keep in their pocket a list of their best customers and they use them time and again, even though those customers are not relevant for that opportunity, for that prospect, right? And many times they don't use references for upsell and expansion like we talked about earlier. And many times they would name those shiny objects, those Googles and Banks of Americas and whatnot, even though I might be, a startup from whatever, Canada, and, those aren't relevant for me. So, the fact is that most companies, when they don't have a program, when they don't have a process, they're really using references miserably in many ways, and many times it's harming their business and they don't track that. And when they keep on requesting from the CSMs the reference, then many times the CSMs don't have the time to check, but is this the best reference for this deal? Or, we've used this person twice in the past month, we can't use them again because it's hard to track as CSMs. There's so much other things they have to do as well. So you also overuse and your customers. And that's where reference programs come into place. You want to overcome all those challenges. You want to be able to find the best candidates. You want to be able to have an approval process so you're not overusing them. You want to be able to match the right one with at least 2 similarity points like industry or country or whatnot. And you want to measure the effectiveness of each one of those references and contents and whatnot, and be sure that you're even acknowledging them for all their work. So really, that's where reference programs come in, and that's what they do. And there is a way to scale them, and that's what we're going to dive into right now. So first of all, what are reference programs? It's basically a framework to do all those activities that you want your customers to do to help you win those deals or talk about their success and recommend to other customers. And again, it could be a reference call, it could be testimonials, customer stories, reviews, etc. But pieces of content, whether verbally given on a call or written, that help other customers take the decision and know that somebody like them has voted for your product. Then it has to be an opt-in product. It has to be an official product that people actually sign up to and say, yes, I'm up for that, right? Not just that salesperson saying, this is my best customer and I'm going to use them, and kind of pound them with calls till the ground, till they're going to say, don't ever call me anymore. So customers have to opt in and say, I'm happy to take calls. I'm happy to take calls with people like me, maybe VPs of, or technical people because I'm technical. I'm happy to take one call a month. I expect to get something for that. I don't expect to get something for that. That's how you create a program and you create alignment with your customers. And it is a part of a loyalty program, a part of a bigger scheme. We look at it as part of the advocacy or customer marketing framework. And it has to fit, again, to their role, because both sides lose. If I'm a CIO, Chief Information Officer, and the prospect is, for example, a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, just for the sake of the argument, they're both chiefs, but that's the only thing they're both. I mean, they have very little in common in that sense, and it's just they don't gain that much from talking with each other necessarily, right? So it has to fit for both. And yeah, I mean, it has to improve the overall customer experience, both of the new customers coming and using those references, but also of your existing customers providing the references. They want to feel that you are protecting their time. And if they said once a month, it's once a month for a call, and that you are highlighting them with where they are best fit, and not every time that there's a need, you're bringing them in. You're actually putting them in the right place where they actually gain value from that networking. When they talk to that person, they also win something. They also network with a new person, a new company, and maybe they also get a reward. So there's different ways of building. So the first question would be how to do that. So the first thing you have to do is really grow your pool. To be able to do that, you really need to be able to say, okay, instead of 5 references, 10 references, 20 references, 50 references, whatever, I need to double, triple, quadruple that, because I need to have more people to pick from. I want to have more people to pick from so I don't overuse them. I want to have more people to pick from so I basically make the best match, because I have all the relevant countries and the relevant industries and the relevant product lines. I want to be able to have more to pick from. So really, I make it a great experience for both the buyers and the referencees. And I make it easier to source them fast, to get them quickly, because I'm not overusing them, etc. So one way of growing your pool is what we call nominations. And you could basically, whether it's inside your CRM, Salesforce, or whatnot, whether you create another framework, but at the end of the day, you can have a play where you nominate people to the program. So if I'm the sales rep owning those accounts, or the CSM like managing those accounts, I could nominate them and say, hey, they're happy, they're pretty cool. Let's try to add them officially to the program. Let's ask them how many calls they're willing to take. And of course, let's also make sure that when we do use them, it's going to be with acceptance. So they get an email, or the CSM gets an email saying, can this account, are they healthy? Are they okay? Can they take the call? But then you want to reach out to the customers themselves. And many times what we see is that companies kind of say, let's have the salesperson or the CSM, choose who's referenceable, which is fine. But you want to be able to basically then ask the customer, can you join the pool? Are you happy to kind of buy into the terms and conditions of this program? It's also important GDPR-wise and CCPA-wise and all that, compliance-wise. How frequently can you take the call, right? Once a year, once a month, whenever needed. I mean, because you really want to be able to have the customers opt in and tell you everything they're willing to do in that program. And you want to reach out to them with either in-app or pop-up messages like this one inside your support community even, or inside your product, or by email. You could call them up and ask them those questions as well and then log it. But when you do it digitally, it's just also logged. So now you've grown your pool. That's great. The second step is managing the process. So basically, now that you have a bigger pool and you have the terms and conditions of how and when to use them, now you want to start tracking the usage. So you're probably going to add into your CRM, Salesforce, or whatnot, the ability to basically request a reference and track that in that flow. Basically be able to have the rep say, I need a reference, this is what I need. Then that would either automatically go and find all the people that are relevant for that, or reach out to a reference manager. So if you really want to scale your program, you should have a reference manager, somebody that owns that. Because again, what happens is otherwise the salespeople can do what we call self-serve. So they could perhaps, search themselves for all the available referenceable customers, and they can search to them by, industry and whatever. And then when they choose one, they could also hopefully see how frequently they can take a call, and if they're available for a call now, and when was the last time they did a call. And if you want to give salespeople the ability to do self-serve, you need to give them the ability to do that, and then only CSMs approve it. The other way around is just having them make that reference request, and somebody owns that. A reference manager would basically say, out of these requirements, these are the 5 people that match your requirement, which one you think fits best, or let's check with the CSM if they're okay to take the call, and then run that process. But whether you do it self-serve or you have somebody as a middleman managing the process, both ways there has to be visibility to the pool, to the people available, and when did they do the last call, and why are they the right match, instead of creating a process where, okay, you have a big pool, but anybody can pick anybody whenever they want, how frequent they want, without matching. Then you want to also give customers the ability, again, to participate in many ways and be acknowledged. So you might want to tell customers, hey, as part of the program, the more stuff you do, the more references you do, if you give us a customer story, whatnot, you're going to grow and get badges, right? You're going to grow in the leaderboard. You're going to grow in the leaderboard and kind of win, first place or whatever. You're going to maybe get rewards and different stuff, like whether you want to contribute to charity, or you want to get VIP access to our event, or you want to get gift cards, or you want to get swag, whatever. You want to be able to reach out to customers on all those processes any way they like. So one way, of course, is picking up the phone every time you want to call them, but you could also want to say, hey, we can send them an email and get customers to say, yes, I can take the call now. Or we could maybe Slack them, or we could maybe, have them see a message on the community or even in the product. So again, making it super easy, super fun, and rewarding for customers to participate in the reference program is also important. And that's the point I'm trying to make here. And then you want to make it trackable. So you basically want to kind of say, okay, let's make a dashboard in Salesforce, or let's have a dashboard elsewhere that kind of tells us how many calls have we done, how many of those help deals close win, what is the conversion rate, for example, between deals that happen without references versus deals that happen with references, so we know how frequently we need them. Which types of references are most used? Is it reference calls? Then we need a bigger reference call pool, or maybe it's customer stories or customer video testimonials. Then we maybe need to create more of those. Which salespeople or CSMs are nominating most to the pool, and maybe you want to acknowledge them and for their work of nominating people and bringing them in. And which customers, of course, are helping us the most and taking the most, calls, stories, whatnot, and helping us. So measuring is very important, because then you could show the entire team, both management but also sales, because sales many times would have pushback, right? They would say, yay, but if we do a program, it's going to be slower. I'm going to have to wait another 5 days or a week or whatnot for getting my reference. I'd rather just call my customer and ask him to take another call, right? But again, if you show the results, if you show the data, then there's, with time, better buy-in by sales. They kind of understand that this works. They start to see that, having a structured program is good for their customers, but is also good for them, because everything is trackable and they can see the impact and they can understand what works. And it's not kind of, I'll do the best thing that I can do and, let's move on with that. So I think to conclude, the idea here, if we kind of, and maybe I'll track back and then I'll come back here. So we talked a little bit about, why references are so important. We talked about what companies get wrong, in the sense of, always picking the same people, always using those shiny objects, shiny logos, not necessarily creating a program that is respectful to your customers. So, and then we talked about the value of making it structured and how to make it structured, where the core thing is first to grow your pool, then basically to have a way to match between requests and what's in your pool, then to measure, right? And then to align between sales, customer success, and marketing around, what we need more. Where do we have gaps in references? What is a fair process? Are we giving customers are we promising references in 2 days or 3 days, or we're telling them it's going to take us a week or 2 weeks to source those? So, those are kind of the things that that we wanted to cover today. And I think to summarize, I mean, yeah, ideally you want to scale your reference pool with much more referenceable customers. You want to do it while you protect your customers to keep them happy and keep them, engaged and give them value. You want to create a lot of types. You don't always have to have a call. If you have a video and you have snackable content like quotes and you have reviews and you have customer stories, sometimes that can replace or displace a reference call, and you don't need to utilize the customer so frequently. You want to measure the impact, and you wanted to make it engaging for everybody, for your customers and for your prospects. And I think with that, we're done. Faster than expected, but I'm happy to answer questions that come up, I guess, from now.
Great. I do have some questions for you, so you can't go anywhere. The first one is, who should own reference programs?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a good debate to have, but from my perspective, first of all, or from our experience, it's many times good to have it either in the sales ops organizations or in marketing, and not necessarily under customer success. I'll explain also why. Because customer success, again, are more focused on the relationship with existing customers, on their own KPIs. Reference many times is not their KPI. Sometimes it is. Sometimes customer success are asked to have reference as their KPI, and then maybe they should own it. But I mean, while references is somebody else's KPI in many cases. So maybe marketing teams, customer marketing teams are supposed to generate enough. And again, remember, if it's a program, and we want it to be a program, we mentioned why we want it to be a program. So if it's a reference program, then somebody needs to own the program. And suddenly there's, rewards and tracking. And when you go into that, it's really a loyalty program, a marketing-oriented program. And that's why I think the best place for it is customer marketing. But we've seen organizations that have it under customer success. We've seen organizations that have it under sales or sales operations. And I definitely don't think that, there's a right answer on who should own it. I do think that the right answer is that somebody should own it. Somebody should be the centralized resource managing it and making sure that everything is well managed, both customer expectations, prospect expectations, alignment with CSMs, protecting the customers, etc.
Got it. So definitely should be ownership of the program, and it doesn't necessarily need to be customer success. Great. Another question is, how do you recommend managing using customers' time for reference calls, creating content, attending events, panels on a webinar, etc.?
Yeah, so again, I think program is a great framework. So when you basically kind of align with your customers, and again, whether it's done digitally or on a call with them, or when they sign up, just kind of self-serve, but you kind of tell them, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, these are the things that you can do. So you can take a call, you can speak in an event, you can give us a customer story. We'd love to have all of those. Which one of those are you happy to do? How much can we ask you to do, and in what cadence, right? And when you make that alignment, some customers are happy to build their personal brand, and they would check all the boxes. They say, oh, heck, I'll do the webinar, and I'll do the event, and I'll do the customer story, and I'll take as many reference calls as you want. Other customers would say, hey, no, I can't do anything public. I'm a government organization or whatever, but I can take private reference calls, so I'm happy to do that and also meet people while I do so. So I mean, there's really the best way to manage that is to create the program, because in the program you create the rules of engagement, both for them and have them accept whatever they're willing to do. And that way, for each individual, how many things they're willing to do in what capacity and frequency.
Awesome. Makes sense. Another question that came through said, how do you recommend vetting customer references when entering the program and assessing their performance?
Good question. Thank you for all the questions, by the way. So I think, there's many ways of vetting customers, and there's many criterias for vetting customers. It depends really what you want to vet. So I think the first thing would be looking at their data, right? So their title, how long have they been using your product? Are they, good users, good customers of your product, and all that stuff. that's kind of regular data. But then it's matching what they're willing to do to their profile and to what you need. So I'll give an example. If somebody is super technical, like a technical user of your product, like an engineer, for example, would you have them speaking in a customer event? If it's a very technical session, yes. If it's a marketing event or a customer story type of event, probably not. So, I mean, I think the vetting really needs to be around, not saying that some people can and some people can't participate. It's more about saying, if this person wants to participate, let's make sure that they participate in what makes most sense to them, but also most sense to us, right? So, and again, that's based on their title and how long they've been a customer and how well versed they are with our product, etc. Awesome. And by the way, last thing about that, some companies take calls. So if you want somebody to be on a more higher profile, so like if you want people to take reference calls or to write a customer story or video testimonial, then some companies would get on a call or would ask for a brief, like ask that customer even to do like a selfie video or just write what they're happy to talk about. And that's how they kind of gauge how much of a outburst person that is and how much of a strong, reference that person is versus somebody who's maybe less capable to do those activities and more relevant for other activities.
Great. Few more questions. The next one says, how do you recommend getting buy-in from sales for the program? And they mentioned we've struggled to get full adoption and utilization.
Right. I think it's in the details. And by the way, I shared my email and I'm on LinkedIn, and feel free to ask me questions directly and I can go into more details about those things. But generally speaking, at the end of the day, sales are actually the winners of the program. And this is how you need to position it to them. Because for sales, this offers a few things. First of all, if there's a program, their customers get rewarded, they get acknowledged. And again, never mind what that is. That might be a VIP pass to your event. That might be, 20 top customers meet your CEO once a year. Doesn't really matter. Or it's giving them whatever, $100 to buy something. It doesn't matter. But I mean, in the program, they get acknowledged, they get a certificate, they get a badge, whatever, they get acknowledged. That's number one. So sales actually want that for their customers. Number two, again, if we go back to that research with Gong, and using Gong data is great with sales because Gong is a sales, revenue management tool, and they did Gong Labs searched, and they saw that sales are actually miserably using references many times. So kind of pushing that back to sales and saying, listen, you think that you know what's the best way to work with references, but actually research shows that it's not really that well. And telling them, listen, sometimes the best reference is really not the one you expect or you would think you use. The best reference is just the best match. And really we want, and give, the way to push it to sales is, telling them, you should adopt it because it's great for you, because your customers get rewarded and acknowledged, because you're going to get the best fit references that help you close deals better and faster. That's what you care about, closing deals better and faster. And that's what the program helps, because we're going to have much more people in the pool and we're going to have much more diversity. So you can also get those faster. I mean, and we can track what works. So if people are not so good, we can see that their statistics are not good and we can pull them out. So there's a way to push it or sell it to sales, but yeah, you have to wrap it in a sales value prop.
Awesome. Well, great content. Thank you for being here. We are right at time. I'm so impressed with all the speakers today. They're ending on the perfect time. So thank you again. And it sounds like people can get in touch with you on LinkedIn if they have any more questions.
Both LinkedIn, and I also gave my email, gal.biran@crowdlocate.com. So feel free to reach out to me and I'm happy to help.
Great.
Thank you for this opportunity.